94. Fantastic.
Ready, huh?
Okay, so now make sure, she has a very soft voice too, so I have to talk up as much as possible so, so we can hear you. Okay, so tell us your name then. And let's-
Edith Blouch.
Okay, and Edith, you were born
In Gravel Hill, North Londonderry Township, August the 15th, 1916. I'm 94.
94. That's why we ask you to come and talk with us, because we're trying to talk with people who have lived in the Palmyra area for the last 85 plus years. And so I said the last 100 years to someone, they said, well, you don't have people that are 100, but 94 is pretty close, isn't it? What was Palmyra like back in 1917?
Well, I lived in the country, and of course I didn't find out too much about it until I went into town to school. But I went 12 years to school because they had no country school back there.
Okay.
Out there along Route 117, now there were 4 farmers living out there, and they paid to have us go to Palmyra school.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, how many children were in that group?
Well, there's the Forney farm and the Goodman farm and our farm, and then down below was the Coble farm. So there were 4 families there.
Okay. And the Forney farm, later I lived on.
I know.
When I was a
know.
child,
That's
yes.
still there.
Yes.
And we lived where the Algers lived.
Okay.
We built that house,
Okay.
and we lived there.
Now that road, that street, I mean, that house, the Alger farm, is on Palmyra Road, or
Yeah,
Palmyra
yeah,
Campbelltown
yeah,
Road.
yeah.
Okay, but your property went over to 117.
No, yeah, it went over to the Sidetown area.
Right, okay, all right,
All the way
very
over
good.
there.
And then where was the school then when you came in? Did you have to walk in,
Oh,
or?
we walked to school every day. Yes, the Forneys and the Goodmans, and all of us walked to school every day.
And that was at the Railroad Street building, is that where it was? Okay, so when was that building? Because they talk about the old school being over
College
where,
Street.
yeah, on College
College
Street,
Street.
right. Did you go there at all, or was
No,
that
no,
prior
no,
to you?
No,
Okay.
all my years there at Palmyra School.
And all of them right in that Railroad Street building? Okay. Did they have like one class per year, or?
No, it was Miss Turby's class in first grade and Miss Irene, and I just loved Miss Irene. I knew right then that I'm going to be a teacher.
When you were in second grade? In first grade, in first grade.
Because that summer I went out at the side of the barn. There was a nice place, shady place, at the side of the barn beside a sallow, and I had my school out there with stones for desks and sticks for people. And I played out there. I didn't want anybody else out there. And Mother would call me, and I'd walk around back of the barn. She'd call me in the front, vice versa. Till finally she followed me and found where I was out there. I said, "What are you doing out here?" I said, "I'm teaching school." I knew then I was going to be a teacher.
So Miss Turby really, I remember Miss
Miss
Turby,
Irene.
but she was,
No, Miss Irene.
Miss Irene, but Miss Turby was also
She was
teaching
in-
at the same time when you were in first grade. And she was still teaching when I was in first grade in the 50s too. Oh my goodness.
That's how
Miss
I
Irene.
knew I was going to be a teacher.
Was that her last name?
Bixler.
Oh, Irene Bixler,
We
okay.
call her Miss Irene.
Miss Irene, okay. So then you went through Palmyra,
Right.
and then where did you go after you graduated? Where did you do your
Well, I
college work?
decided to go to the town college and get my teaching. But I was, last year, they only had to have 2 years to teach, only 2 years of college. The next year you had to have 3 years, the next year you had to have 4 years. So I went my 2 years to college there and then started teaching.
And did you start back in Palmyra District then?
No, Depression time, and schools were very scarce. I was in the Lancaster, I didn't want country school, I wanted grade school. But I went in the country in Lancaster County looking for schools, I couldn't find any. Then I heard up at Dauphin County, at Sandy Hollow, there's a school that there's a vacancy. So in September, in April, they only had 8 months school. And they closed school up and up there, and they said, "No, we need a man," because the last day of school, the children took mud and threw it in the building, and the walls were all spattered with mud.
Oh, no, undisciplined.
So they said, "No, we need a man." And there was blacks and whites going together there. That was a problem. And she was from the South, the teacher.
Oh.
So that was the problem.
And what year was this then?
This was in 1936.
Okay.
So then I came home and didn't have a job, and then in the end of July, a man came to see Daddy out at the barn. I didn't know who he was, and he knew Dad, and he was a director from that school. And he said, please, he said, come and teach for us. I said, where's your man? We can't get a man. We can't get a woman. Nobody will go in there. I said, no. I said, I'll have a black mark the rest of my life. If I fail there, I'm not going. So he left, and Dad says, you go. You borrowed all that money from Mr. At the bank, and you have to go because you owe all that money. He said, now you go. I said, I'll go to the shoe factory and work. He said, no, you go. So I told him I'd come, and I'm never sorry I went.
So this was up in the Harrisburg area?
Close to Harrisburg. And the boy was 15 years old, this black boy, and he was the problem. I was 20 years old.
Oh my goodness. But you whipped them into shape then that first year?
I was never sorry I went there. I never saw a change in a boy like he was. I had no prejudice to blacks.
Right.
And Daddy knew I didn't have any. And he said, you go. And I think that was the whole problem there.
So that the former teacher was white, but she was from the South, so
Yes.
she had some prejudices. Uh-huh.
And then Alan Boucher came that spring, and said, we have a vacancy at Knapp Singers, and that's where I started.
Now tell us about NAFS, because that's a new term for younger people in Palmyra. Tell us about NAFS Singers, and tell us about the country schools
Well, there were
in
four.
Palmyra.
There were 4 country schools in North London, Dairy Township, Knapp Singers in Gravel Hill, and Longs, they were all north, and then Huffers was south. That's torn away too. But the Knapp Singers school was still standing. And of course the Gravel Hill, too. So I went there, and I was glad because it's in my home community, and I started teaching there then. And the directors were good there. They made us come in once a month to get our checks, but they were supposed to, corresponding with what we have problems and what they have to tell us, so which was good. But every month we had to go there to our board meeting, and I was very happy at Knapp Singer School.
Now you were the only teacher there?
Right.
It was a one-room schoolhouse? You had 8 grades?
Right.
How many students did you
Well,
have?
I had around 30 usually, till the very end when Forge Acres developed with all those buildings back there when the ground was sold, back there. That was so terrible with enrollment just sky high, and I couldn't manage them at all because there were too many of the smaller children from these young couples. So they changed and sent 4th, 5th, and 6th over to Gravel Hill, and I just had the first 4 grades. But the last 4 years I was in Knapp Singer School, I had 44 children in my classroom every day, and out of the 44 one year, 33 were boys.
Oh my goodness, my goodness. Well, tell us what it's like to be a teacher with all those different ages.
And so, well, I only had 4 grades then, And then somebody said, I said, well, I'm glad there were boys. I said, girls at the 2nd, 3rd grade level have these little cliques. I said, and I said, they don't work together. I said, but the boys go out and play ball. I said, they forget all about their,
That's true.
Yeah. But then we closed, and then last year was 33 boys.
So how long were you at NAFS? That was about, what, 38 that you started there?
In 17 years, I was at the Knapp Singer School. And we were just like a big family because you had children year after year from the same family,
Right.
One year I had 4 from the same family. Another family had 3 from the same family. And later on they intermarried, which was interesting. But it's...
the stories you could tell.
It's this closeness of relationship with the kiddies, and the families. And we had our fun days, we really did. There was along the Quittava Hill down there was a little pasture, and the farmer said, you may go out there and take your lunch sometimes at dinner time and let the children roam around there. And we did. And we found a lot of turtles one day, and we said, let's have a turtle race. Well, you know how a turtle race goes. We had 4 of them, but no turtle race. And then, of course, we found a gulp of tadpoles, eggs, and one of the boys said, "Oh, my dad can get that out for us. Let's bring it to school." So we got a great big wash tub I took out to this farmer, and he put this little dog into the wash tub and brought it to school. We had that 4 days of school watching these little eggs. Oh, that was
Wasn't that
wonderful.
exciting?
And then we took it back to the creek again. So things like that we could do, together as a group. It was just gorgeous. But think of being a teacher and a mother and a nurse and a playground supervisor and a music supervisor. And one day I had to even be a truant officer.
Go out and find who wasn't there.
The child was there, but she ran away from him. And the cornfield was right next against the fence, and she had an awful temper, and she went across the fence and went in this cornfield and was lying on the ground there screaming, and it was all mud all over her, and she looked a mess. And I said, "Come on back." I said, "I'll send your brother." "No." I said, "I'll send your little girlfriend over." "No, I don't want it." I said, "What should I do?" "If you want me, you come and get me."
Oh,
I said, "Well, I can't climb across that fence." I said, "I'm too big." I said, "I can't crawl underneath that little hole that you went there to get in there." I said, "I'm too big for that too." I said, "Come on over." "No, come and get me." Well, I thought she might start running and get lost, and I couldn't send anybody else over. Supposed to be an accident. So I walked up the hill, took the bar out, walked down the hill, got her up, took her by her hand. I said, "Now," I said, "I don't know what happened." I said, "You just tell me what happened as we go up the hill here." As soon as we got to the little hole, she'd have to go with her hand and crawl underneath the hole. Then I had to walk up the hill, put the bar in, walk down the hill. And I thought, well, that's one time a youngster told a teacher what to do. And it was nothing, absolutely nothing. But things like that, And one time I had to take a child home who was deathly sick around 11 o'clock, and I knew she'd never lay still. No telephone. It was frightening.
I bet.
I
bet you were out there in the middle of nowhere, really.
And I could have a telephone if the people next door were across the street were there, but they were working all the time, And I had no other telephone. So all I had to do was take her home, and halfway there my car stopped, and I looked a mess till I got back to school.
Well, who took care of the children while you were
I
taking
had to be
them?
by myself. I
Oh,
told her,
my
I said,
goodness.
"You have to be by yourself." I said, "And 8th graders, can't take care." I said, "This is very important." I said, "Please stay in your seats. I want you to go to the bathroom if you have to go outside." I said, "But please, please." And I coaxed them, and they were okay. But I had fallen coming over. I took a shortcut across the hill instead of walking out around, so I get there quicker, and I fell, and I looked a mess when I got back to school. But the kiddies had a good laugh with it all, so did I. Oh, it was funny.
But in a one-room school, my impression is that the older children do sort of watch over the
Yes,
younger.
they did. Yeah.
And they help in the teaching process.
And they're so motherly too, because I know that one family with 4 in the family, there was an 8th grader and a 7th grader and a 6th grader, 3 right after.
Right in a row.
So, and they were very lovely to count on to do things like that. So,
Now, then, what about the middle 50s is when they closed those schools?
well, and then Roman got that heavy, yes, and then they closed the school. And then we went into Palmyra as a jointure, and all the grade children went into Railroad Street building. And I was assigned
Okay, go
I
ahead.
was assigned room 6, and that's where I was in 3rd grade as a student.
Oh, you're kidding. In the Railroad Street building.
Then I was assigned in that room, and I was a teacher then in 2nd grade. So I was there 6 years. And then after the 6 years, South Londonderry joined up with us, and then we became Palmyra Area School District.
Okay.
And
So it was Palmyra, then North Londonderry joined them first.
North Londonderry joined first, and then we're a jointure.
Okay.
And then the South Londonderry School had the Campbelltown School and the Lawn School.
Okay.
They had closed there and put those 2 schools together. So they joined us then, and then we became the Palmyra School District.
Okay.
And that's how that happened then.
Right. And then when did you move down? You were always teaching 2nd grade when you were in the railroad building.
Yes,
Okay.
and then in October of 1958, with 12 classrooms up at the Railroad Street building with the teachers. Walked down to Forge and opened Forge, the first elementary building in Palmyra.
Is that when that was, 1958? Because I remember walking down, I was in
Yeah.
4th grade,
Right.
and I just never really picked on the
And,
date.
And I was in the first row there because I had a child who had braces on. She wanted to walk.
Mhm.
And Mr. Coop said, well, I'll follow after in the road because they closed the street, you know. He said, if you need help, you come and call me. But she went the whole way and we walked slowly so she could go. And the 5th grade boys were crossing me because I walked so slowly.
Oh. And you led the group?
Yeah.
Did you lead the group that day when we
I'll
walked
never
down there?
forget that. I said, I'm sorry. I said, it was Mr. Coop's orders.
Yeah. So you actually opened the Forge Street building,
Yeah.
and then you finished the rest of your career in the Forge Street building in 2nd grade.
Yeah, I was a head teacher there and taught there.
Now, I know that you have great memory about almost all the students that you ever have. Do you have a number of the
Well, I
total
have a
number?
book. I'm so glad I have this book. I have a name of all my children I ever taught in this book and the year they were in my classroom. And I have 1,537 children in grade school. And then I had 5 students I private taught. And then 2 summers I taught summer school up at North Side for reading. So that, and then in Sunday school I had 500.
500 in Sunday school as well. You certainly dedicated your whole life to teaching young
That
children.
was wonderful.
And all of us who've been partakers of that certainly appreciate what you've done. It's
Yes,
great.
and the last day I walked out of school, left my key on the desk there. I thought, what in the world am I going to do without my children?
Oh, I bet. But you were volunteering after that, didn't you? Do some volunteering to keep yourself busy?
Yes, I mean, I volunteered at the Hershey Medical Center on pediatrics.
On
Which
pediatrics.
I loved.
Oh, that's great.
I worked part there at Little People, but that wasn't enough, work there, so I went to the hospital.
Did you choose to retire though? I mean, how old were you when you finished?
Well, I taught 44 years.
Okay.
Most of them only taught 30 years. So I taught 44 years.
That's a lot of years in one job.
1980 I retired.
Okay. Very good. Do you, I was asking the person that was here earlier, we were asking the question related to school board members. Do you remember, did you have any contact with school board members? You said earlier about when you were at Knopfsinger's and you had to get together with the school board every month or whatever. Who were the type of people that were
Well,
on
there
the
were
board?
farmers that were there, but they were interested in school work, and I thought they were very good, and they would work very well with Mr. Moyer and Mr. Longacre, who were the county superintendents, and they would advise, and they worked together. And I know when I came into Palmyra, and I told them that we had the Dick and Jane books in 1950 in the country, the town teachers could hardly believe that we had those books.
So you were ahead of the game. You were really
We had
progressive in
Yes.
the
I
wonder
mean, I remember
schools.
those Elson Gray readers, but those were kind of, well, I had those when I went. So it was so nice to have these Dick and Jane books, And I thought they were wonderful, the directors, but they were country farmers. I remember Mr. Bumgardner and Mr. And Claire Seltzer was one of them, and Harry Forney and Alan Bucher, and there for a while Sarah Forney was on, but he was more for the town schools,
Mhm.
not back in the country. So there were good directors, and with the superintendents, and we were observed all the time by those superintendents, but both of those, Mr. Moyer and Mr. Longacre, were killed in an automobile accident.
I know there's a scholarship that's given every year in their
Yeah.
names, but I
That was a
didn't.
big loss to the community when those two died.
And they died in the same accident?
And I enjoyed when they came to observe us, They'd say, well, no, I think you could do this, and they gave little hints, of how you could do better. I enjoyed them. I really did.
Oh, that's neat. That's great. Well, we have a few more minutes. Just when you think of Palmyra, because this whole DVD is going to be about Palmyra. What is one of your fondest memories of Palmyra, of growing up in Palmyra and having your employment here and so forth? What's your fondest
I
memory?
don't know what to tell for that. You know, I just like knowing so many people, you know, and getting acquainted with so many like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought we had a wonderful school system too.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a lot of people have mentioned that. That's a very
I
good
thought we
system.
did, and togetherness as a community too, and caring for each other.
Yes.
I felt that way.
Well, and you, from what you're telling us, with over 1,500 students, you helped in that because you helped provide that family atmosphere from the time the children were little, and I know that carries a great deal of weight as people get older. They remember the things that happened to them early in their lives.
And I remember the supervisors we had at school, like Mr. Hartz was so long, you know, when I was going to school, and then I taught under him.
Okay, so Mr. Hartz was here when you were a student, and he was still here when I ended up
Yeah.
going into the school
Yeah,
district
he was
as well.
there, yeah.
Wow.
And of course, I saw a lot of him too.
Yes.
I remember he came out to me when he said he's closing the schools at Nassau, and he said, but we'll give you a job in Palmyra. I said, well, thank you, but I said, I hate to see the school closed.
I bet.
I really
It sounds
did.
like it was that was your whole family at
Right.
that time.
Oh, I did.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much.
I never would believe that would, you know, be so for the country schools when I always went to town school.
You like that? Yeah. This was a wonderful experience. Thank you for sharing this for the past half hour. You put it all into perspective and chronological order there. I appreciate that. So, I hope we get to tell a lot of this story.
But think of starting like that with just 2 years of college, you know, and
Well, but I think that you learned a lot on the job. Don't you think?
I know,
Yeah.
I said, but I had to keep on, and I started, when I heard that, you know, they changed it to 3 years and 4 years, I thought, well, I better get busy and get my degree, you know, because they'll be coming out with 4 years, or I'll be old and gray until I.
So you did, you took extra classes then and so forth?
Yeah, I got my bachelor's in 1956, I got my bachelor's from Newtown College in 1956, and I got my master's. And then I got on top of my master's too in 15.
So you kept up your own education?
Yeah. I enjoyed Temple too.
You went down to Temple?
Yeah, I had to spend 2 summers on campus because that was one of their requirements, that you have to spend so many hours on campus.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that summer.
In the summer, yeah.
So most of my work was in summer.
You just have this love of learning. When I think of the term lifelong learning, I think of you. What do you do today to keep learning?
It's dull.
Well, you can read and,
I can't read too much anymore. It just hurts me too.
yeah, that's hard when you can't read. Do you listen to tape that you can read by listening to
Well,
books?
I didn't listen to tapes, you know, but I read a book, I averaged a book a week. I mean, a book a month since I retired in 1980 till this year, I won't make it.
Hmm. Well, maybe you want to try those books on tape. I enjoy those because I fall asleep when I read, unfortunately. So I have to keep it active so I can